Welcome to the World Networking Podcast. Today we have Warner Paau on the show to demonstrate some of his working knowledge in the food industry and the prison system, different things that we'll touch on as we proceed. Really do hope you enjoyed today's episode, as this was a blast to have. And I really enjoy Warner's energy in discussion and how ambitious his ideas are and topics to touch on can be. I really did think it created a quality episode that you guys will find enjoyable. So thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the World Networking Podcast. Today I have Warner joining us for the show, and he's here to introduce some of his background and various experiences in various industries, quite frankly. I'm really excited to have him on today. Warner, would you like to introduce some background?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. Very excited to be here. I've worked a lot of places. I basically grew up in Hong Kong. I was born in Rhode Island. My parents brought me back to Hong Kong when I was 2 weeks old. I think it was 10 days old, actually. So I grew up there until I was 16. And then they sent me over here because they thought it would be better if I got college over here. College in Hong Kong and China back then was a lot more competitive and expensive than it was over here. There's a lot more people. It's just a lot more rigorous. So they just felt like I had better opportunities over here, so they sent me over here. So I landed in California. I spent, I think it was 2006 to 2012 to 13 there, something like that. So spent 6 to 7 years there. I got my degree from Cal State University Fullerton in English. And then I went to upstate New York for a few years. Ever since then, I've been kind of bouncing around. I'm from upstate New York. I went to Oregon. From Oregon, I've been to Colorado. From Colorado, I went to Maine. From Maine, I went back to Oregon. So I've really been all over the place. And living in all these different places, I've worked a ton of different jobs.
You know, something I wanted to touch on what you said there is kind of your travel experience. Was it mostly willing travel experience? Like, did you have a choice, or was this something that you kind of had to adapt and learn to accept a lot of the time? That, you know, you're in a new environment, you have to stay positive, you have to keep forward progression moving.
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. One major reason I moved a lot recently in the last few years is because I got divorced in Oregon, so I just kind of wanted to get out of Oregon. But other than that, I also feel like I would have, even if it wasn't for that, I would have found some ways to kind of just move around. I don't really feel like I'm a spiritual person. There are some kind of like traditional things that I kind of believe in. I was born in the year of the horse in Chinese culture, and I have always felt like I'm kind of just wandering around, you know, kind of like a horse is. That's about as superstitious as I get, and it just feels like I've always felt content to move. Like I've never really, ever since I left kind of Hong Kong, I've never really felt super attached to one place, even though each individual place has its own really beautiful and unique things. I just have not really felt attached to any one place, and I always find myself moving. And in that process, I always work many different career fields. Like I've worked caregiving, I've worked in a prison, I've been a line cook, I've worked in a convenience store, I've worked at a gas station. I've worked in a lot of places.
No, you're completely fine. Now something I wanted to touch base on is so you have a few fun facts there, but any hobbies that you have?
Yeah. I ride my motorcycle as much as I can. Well, not recently because it's been winter and I just moved. So it's actually not licensed yet in this state. I got to get it registered and all that crap. Um, and I'm a super big gamer because um, it's always been kind of like a convenient retreat for someone that's a lot of times I've felt unwelcome, like especially in high school. I pretty much got bullied all the time, so I kind of retreated into video games. So I've always kind of been a nerd. Anime, video games, that kind of thing. I'm a drummer too. If I had more time, I'd probably have a drum set. If I had a place of my own, like I had when I was younger, like my parents' house, I'd have a drum still. But right now I'm renting, so it's not super practical. But yeah,
I
um,
feel that, man. I, as a drummer myself, I one of the hardest things was getting rid of my drum set. I
I've
I
definitely
really missed
been
that
there.
thing. Man. Oh,
I had a
please.
drum set. I collected pieces over many years. I had some good Sabian cymbals.
Ooh.
Yeah, I waited for sales to get these things. Sometimes they were far out of my price range, but I got them for good prices, man. I had a whole bunch of like just nice cymbals,
Man.
um, a custom like a different snare than came with the set. It was nice. I had a nice set, and then I had to sell it for like it's like $50 from Guitar Center or something. Just traded it in for nothing.
Yeah, I was just thinking about pulling my cymbals out, but it'd also be cymbal abuse because I need to polish them, and it's just Georgia wasn't the nicest place for brass. That's all I can say. I
Oh, it's
learned
hot and
that real
humid.
quick. Yeah, that was not
Yeah.
ideal, but um, you know, live and learn with that stuff.
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
Drumming's all about
I,
learning, especially the physical. It's a half of being a drummer is being a moving job specialist.
yes. Yep. Because there's a lot.
Oh,
There's a lot
yeah,
to move.
it's intense. There's a lot of moving dynamics to the music world, and I don't know. Have you ever been in a band or anything like that? Out of curiosity.
Yeah. In high school, I played at the talent show. I was in a band in high school.
That's
My
awesome.
one of my best friends to this day is was my vocalist in high school in my high school band, and we've just been friends to this day. Right now, she's in California somewhere. So yeah, but we're still buddies to this day.
Wrong button there. No, that's
All
awesome.
good.
Um, I think music's one of those things, man, that it once you feel like you've lacked in that department, a part of you needs to reconnect or rekindle. At least for myself, like lately, I haven't been working on music as much as I would hope to, but at times, you really do fall in and out of practice of things, but that doesn't mean that your passion has to fall off the same way that
Hmm.
your habits necessarily do. I think it's good to cycle habits. I'm not saying this is a proven research or anything, but for myself, I do feel like I get a fresh sense from appreciating things if I'm able to address where I'm at in the situation and understand I haven't always been in this situation before. I haven't always had this perspective. How did I get this perspective? Oh, I had different circumstances, different things that led up to my understanding of this one I'm in. And I feel there's a value and an importance to being adaptable. It's something we talked about on my other show, the panel, and we've been kind of going down avenues where the self is very important when it comes to um, understanding your reference to seeing change, and imposing change in your community. It takes small steps within yourself to motivate, and sometimes it takes discomfort to get to a place where you want to be.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Interestingly, it takes a lot to figure out like what you are yourself. Like for myself, for example, food was like a super major thing when I came over here because the food was completely different from what I was used to growing up. But then, even though I used to dislike the food here, I've gotten so used to it and I've gotten so comfortable with it that now it feels like part of myself. Like now I feel at home when I eat a burger just as much as I feel at home when I eat like Chinese soup noodles with chopsticks, you know? Because it's like I've made it part of myself. And that was a really, really long process. Like, I'll be honest with you, the first week I got to the States, I ate like Jack in a Box for like 2, 3 days of the week. And I just felt like absolute trash. Like, I had the runs. I was sick. I didn't feel good. I didn't want to eat anything. I was just like curled up in a ball in my room and I just felt horrible. And I like hated the food here. I just wanted to go home and like eat some good food from home, you know. Um, but yeah. And then after many, many years, I've been here now like 16 years. Now I look forward to like a ribeye steak or like a good burger just as much as I look forward to like, congee or noodles or chashu or something like that because I've been exposed to it enough in positive situations that it's become like endearing to me, even though I at first disliked it a lot. And it was like it's through a lot of hardship, and it's funny how just like simple foods like represent a lot of your life change and how you look at things differently. That's why
Absolutely.
I look at food so importantly, and I'm really proud I'm a line cook because of that.
No, it's something to be proud of, man. I
Thanks.
genuinely think it's a great profession to hone yourself in, you know? Some of the best people I've been around have been people who have chosen to do one of the dirtiest jobs I know, and that's line cooking. Line cooking's not beautiful all the time, but
Hmm.
the principles behind the job, it's like the medical field, right? The medical field's very similar in a sense where you're providing in the best sense. You're supposed to have your bar here all the time. It doesn't matter if you're at Burger King or if you're at uh, Bistro King, you know, like
Yep.
it's the standard's the same. You cook to a standard that's going to provide a satisfactory result, and nothing less. Like you have to have the mindset that you want to come in winning, you know. And if you
Hmm.
don't, then it crushes you. And I've seen people be crushed by that demotivation. I've had it happen myself on the line, um, and it's part of the reason I know it's such a hard job to overcome for a lot of people. It's hard to expose yourself in that sort of way because you're physically and mentally there, and to get yourself to coexist, like
Hmm.
that's an art form, in my opinion.
It's definitely one of those more overlooked and I would say underappreciated jobs. Like a lot of the times after I'm done doing a dinner rush or something, and I'll like walk to the bathroom, or maybe I'll have time to like get myself a water. I'll look across the dining room and I'll see all these tables that are eating my food and enjoying my food. And I'll think to myself, they don't even know that I'm standing here right now. They're just enjoying their food because it's good. And you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with just being in the background, even though you are burning your flesh and you're cutting yourself to put food on a plate on time. And if you're okay with that, if you're okay with that level of self sacrifice to make sure people have a great experience, you can be a great line cook or a great chef. That's why I love food. It represents passion, it represents my love of life that I hold within myself. And making sure people, every time they eat, wherever I'm working, they can have that experience, that makes me happy. And it doesn't matter if they don't know who I am, it doesn't matter if they never see me or meet me. The fact that they could spend 30 minutes, an hour and a half there enjoying what I have put before them is like, it really makes me push. Like, it makes me tick. And I think that's what draws me to the profession of cooking, because it's really kind of like sacrifice, like personal sacrifice in like on a daily way, that's kind of very unique, and a lot of people kind of like don't really think about it. They think about like, police officers or doctors, or like people in the military, like things like that comes to mind a lot, but a lot of people don't think about cooks. A lot of people don't think about teachers. Well, I guess more people do,
Well,
but it is definitely one of those professions.
you know, and if I may, I would say that it's almost shifting a little bit too, because if you look at viral content and especially short media, cooking is a perfect sort of presentable topic for
Mm-hmm.
shorts.
Yes.
And that's helped, I think, motivate people to at least attend more food industry activities. I mean, people, it's no secret people like food, especially in America. That industry is not dying soon. Um, People are going to eat out, and that's great. That's great for local economy, and local economy needs that. That's part of the reason I myself will go to the local food trucks and participate when I can. Because these are people trying to make a living and trying to support the community with a great service, and I see it nothing less. But I
Mm-hmm.
know how much work goes into maintaining such an establishment, something like that. You have to really be, again, present in a lot of forms, and it's that self-sacrifice that a lot of people can't handle that, and it's hard. It's very hard, especially when your own team is working against you and you feel like you're the enemy, and you're the outcast. I've definitely felt like the outcast, working in San Francisco as a practically hillbilly to everyone. Was weird. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely, but I played into it, right? Like, I was the white guy who could speak English, and that was literally what I got hired for. So, I
Mm-hmm.
played into it. I did my service real well, but that's how I kept my job. I had to be all in. I had to be all ears, to see what the customers wanted. Because I mean, man, one bad complaint from a customer, I'm gone. You know.
Mm-hmm.
There's no saying, it could be any day with restaurant work. You step on the wrong toes, and I mean, it it's a very easy thing to be defensive over when you feel like you're personally at fault in a situation. And I feel like a lot of places end up making the environment so tense because they themselves don't know how to handle the stress that's coming at them. In turn, it comes out in ways that just affect teams and can be negative, man. Um, Truly, but
Yep.
that it puts a bad light on the industry as a whole, and that's something I'm hoping to reflect, differently from this show, especially with talking to various people from the industry and other industries. That, hey, there's good people everywhere, and we need to keep in mind that, there's a reason we, the consumer, have a choice over our dollar. We're able to support the places that really deserve that kind of attention. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of toxic behavior in the industry. Unfortunately, the service industry is notorious for having a really high turnover rate, and so it just contributes to the problem. The way I've always dealt with it in the past is basically I focus on the plate. I focus on what I'm putting in front of the customer. I don't focus on anything else. I don't care what that person is saying. I don't care what I have to do. If I have to work harder, even to do someone else's job or take on their responsibilities to put what I have to put on the plate that a customer will be satisfied with, then I do that, because I'm not doing it for the person that I'm working with, and I'm not doing it for my, boss that doesn't appreciate me. I'm doing it for the customer. The customer pays me and the customer came here. And if it wasn't for the customer, we wouldn't exist. So I think focusing on that helps me push through a lot of these situations. And definitely, I've come into these situations where you really don't have a choice but to work with people that on a fundamental level you might not even agree with, or you don't even basically see eye to eye, let alone even want to work together.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually uh if you have another point, I don't want you to forget if you want to finish.
oh yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that when I actually met you, it was working through the industry, and one thing I connected with you on was the value towards the customer. That's
Hmm.
something like we both value, and honestly, uh, because at the time I was dishwashing, and it's not the first place I dishwashed at. Each time I've done dishwashing, it's always the same. It's like, I just got to think, like, a person's going to use this plate. Maybe they'll use it for 5 seconds and not even think about it. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, but as long as it's clean, that's all I'm here for. As long as that thing's clean, man. Like, I can value that. I can value that. I can sleep at night that I'm not going to kill someone for my mistake, because in my mind, and maybe it's the germaphobe that I am to a degree, that's important, man. Like, if I mess that up and I really do hurt someone, how could I live with myself? I've been
Hmm.
fortunate enough to never be in a situation like that, but that happens, man. It's carelessness, and it could happen in your position, and it could have happened in mine. Um, it's and that's when you're talking about an industry that deals with life and death on the daily. You think, maybe military, maybe um, uh, manufacturing. You know, you don't
Hmm.
think like food industry, but when you really get down to it, there's definitely a degree of danger to the service if you're not paying attention. It's very important.
Not only that, but I find my mental health most stable when I eat. People come to eat because it's the only time they have to take away from their days, their busy days. Some people work two jobs. Some people work, some people have to go home, take care of their sick person. Some people have only the time they eat to have a few seconds for themselves. Some people can only afford to go out to eat maybe once a month or once a week, once every 2 weeks. They're there for an hour and they've saved up money and they've put aside money and time so they could have a good time with their loved ones. And they came out to your restaurant and you're going to serve them shit food. You're going to serve them a burger that is not seasoned or that wasn't cooked right or that has the wrong cheese or that has the wrong bread. You're going to serve them a steak that is not absolutely fresh and that's not, you know, uh, expired past serving quality. Like, absolutely not. I
No,
want those people to remember. You don't have to work at a three Michelin star restaurant. You don't have to work at a fancy place for you to be able to produce food that people remember. And it's okay that people don't remember you. People remember the food and they remember the time they had there with the people that they had there. And if you were able to be a part of that process, you should be able to be part of that process. And you have to do that by being highly professional. Your station needs to be clean. You need to show up diligently on time. You need to prepare for your work. You need to understand the technical demands of your job. And if you don't have the technical understanding, you need to find someone that has it and you need to practice until you have that technical understanding. You need to maintain good hygiene when you cook. You need to be efficient at everything you do. You also need to be professional with everyone you need to work with, even if you may not personally agree with them. This is also that the customer gets delivered the best product and the best quality food that they can possibly receive. No matter what it takes from you, you should sacrifice it because this is the mentality of a professional line cook. I thoroughly believe that.
I actually really think you would really appreciate a conversation with my co-host on the Intellectual Adventure podcast, Aquatic
Mm,
Cactus. He's a line cook in Canada, and
hmm.
that's something he really values is discipline in the kitchen and communication. And
Yes.
if you don't have that, you have a breakdown. It's a mess. I've talked to him for hours on that stuff, but he's just having nothing but problems because people are too bullheaded. And those situations happen, man. It's way, way, way too common in the industry, and people truly need to take a step back in a lot of these situations and understand that no, it's not just about front end. No, it's not just about back end. It's about the restaurant, the establishment. It is a collective effort, man. And if one side of that team is not in it, that other side can never be in it. Like you have to have some level of cohesion going on for there to be a healthy dynamic to continue, or else you see the turnover you see from a lot of these places. And again, they don't, it's not everywhere, it depends what you're doing. And some, I mean, like seafood, for instance, it's a lot more dangerous to deal with than some other types of cuisines, because of the seafood allergies. That talk about life threatening. That was something that actually happened in one of my restaurants. So we were working, and restaurant next to us had an ambulance show up, and someone didn't know that they had a seafood allergy. They're just sitting there having their meal, and they passed out. Crazy, it's but that shows the level of understanding of what you're doing. Like this, you as much as that, to compare the two is not really my intent, but it could be someone's last meal. You never know. I mean, you don't know who you're serving. You could be serving the president, and you just don't know. And again, like, your job is not to know that kind of stuff. Your job is to perform well and perform quality. And I mean, I guess if an establishment thinks different, I wouldn't want to be a part of that establishment as a customer, because I don't want to really eat at a place that doesn't value quality in my meal. Why would I? Like, that just seems like the place I don't want to go. Like,
and I'll have you know, I personally don't have any allergies that I know of, but my girlfriend does, and she's actually extremely allergic to certain things like gluten. So actually, when we go out to eat, it's kind of a process to find places that are safe for her. Me as a professional cook, I take it very personally when I get an order that has an allergy warning, because allergy warnings are absolutely to be respected. When I worked in the prison systems, I was fully trained on first aid as well as carrying Benadryl, and I had to know the location of every single EpiPen that was in the facility that was in the immediate proximity of where I was working with the unit. Because in case there was an allergy situation, I had access to that because it was a real thing. And not my unit, but I was working there where the female unit, they definitely had an allergy situation where the EpiPen had to be used. So not only am I with my significant other who has a severe allergy, I definitely have appreciated in a professional environment the severity of allergies and what they can do to someone. The scary thing about it is that you're usually not suspecting what happens when it happens. You're not really, you're not like doing anything dangerous. You just eat something or you just drink something. Boom! All of a sudden you're on the ground. You're choking. You're asphyxiating. Take it very seriously. Clean your gloves. Change your gloves. If you have access to fresh ingredients, that's in a new pan in the walk-in. Go get the new ingredients in the walk-in. Don't get the stuff that's in the cold well sitting on the cutting board that's been exposed to all the dairy, gluten, everything that you're cutting on that board. Use a new knife. You really have to be rigorous with allergies. And I don't care if it takes 5 or 8, 10 minutes more to produce the meal. It's better than taking the risk of potentially not only ruining someone's day, but poisoning someone or triggering an allergic reaction to make someone severely debilitated. Like, would you rather take 10 minutes, or would you rather, use your EpiPen on some customer that's choking to death now? What do you want to do? Take 10
Yeah.
minutes, make a better steak,
No,
Anyone
I
that
agree.
considers themselves a true professional should be proud every time they get an allergy order in, because they know that they're going to be rigorous when they do that. I am very proud when I get an allergy order in, and a lot of the times I insist on my coworkers, I'll take that ticket. I don't let them do it. I do it. I know how to do it. Like, everyone should have the same attitude. Treat your allergies seriously.
I think that actually is a really good testament to a trait that's positive for that industry. Being able to identify problems and seek solutions, applying yourself. That's something I've definitely seen over the years that, well, not just in restaurants, a lot of places, it's always good to apply yourself to the job situation. Pull out a pen and pencil, or paper and pen, and write things down, go through. Um, it depends again what you're doing and where you're at. Some things that it really is just let's get our hands in and let's get dirty. But it's very important to want to engage with your work. If
Hmm.
you're not getting up in the morning with some sense of urgency to get somewhere, what are you doing? When I'm at work, it's not necessarily because I'm hunky dory happy. Um, I try to make the best of it in situations that I feel like I can, but um, it's there's an extension outside of that I'm working towards. Right, I have bigger goals, and most of us do. Maybe that's retirement for some people, and honestly, it's you're not going to get there if you stress yourself out to death. You gotta sometimes take a breath and realize that it is a team effort, and you have ears for a reason, and you can hear a lot of really good information from those around you that maybe know a thing or two from handling stress, and that's something that's helped me out. I'm not really good at hiding my emotions. I've never been good at doing such, but I try again and I try again and again and again. I because I don't um, I deep down I don't quit. I'm not myself if I quit, because I've always kept going, and that's why I like working personally. I think work's a great thing. It's a healthy dynamic to life. We need to have a good dynamic for us ourselves to be healthy. Humans were never meant to sit on a desk all day. Um,
Hmm.
we need to be physical, man, and
Hmm.
uh, it goes with our mindset too. Our mindset's wired for physical nature. If you don't have, or if you associate your physical activities with something negative, then it's just gonna go wrong. You're asking to be depressed. So finding professionalism also is a good way to find positive motivation uh, against depression, in my opinion.
Hmm. I 100% agree, and I've definitely been in a lot of work situations where, let's say, positive motivation wasn't on the forefront of either the managerial staff or my fellow coworkers. Well, what do you do in that situation? It's really difficult, but most of the time, if you're just going to be miserable about it, you will either have the fortitude to be miserable about it and keep grinding through it, or you're just going to be miserable about it and then give up. My approach is to kind of see those situations as like an opportunity to take on more responsibility for yourself, and I've done this a lot. I'm not going to name names, but then there was definitely a situation in one of my previous jobs where I was working with individuals that were, let's say, not only not efficient, but not efficient to the production of food service and quality food service. So I just became more efficient. I became faster. If that person's not dropping buns, good. I'll take the time to drop the buns. And I'm going to butter the grill before that instead of just throwing the buns on the dry grill, which that person's going to do because that person is in a rush. I will take on that person's job and I'll do it better than them. And if I don't have a brush because it's a rush, I will go get a brush in the back room. I'll walk back there and go get a brush, and I'll do it properly the way it's supposed to. And what do you know? After a couple months of that, it turns out that I'm faster than that person dropping the buns in the first place, even though it was that person's original responsibility as that part of the station. But now I'm doing it. So I became better. I've done this a lot for many, many different specific skills. And actually, it turns out every single time that if there's a person that is not succeeding in the team, if I look at it as an opportunity to fulfill that person's role and to exceed it better than that person would exceed it as their own full-time role, you actually become way better. As a person that prefers excellence, that is definitely a path that I have pursued repeatedly, and it has yielded very good results when it comes to professional cooking. And I definitely appreciate it and respect that as a professional part of my character and my approach to work situations. So my advice, if you're dealing with a person that's not pulling their weight at work, look at it as an opportunity for you to shine and then shine. And do that repeatedly so that you're undeniably the best of the best.
No, I really think that's wonderful advice, especially for people that aren't used to the workforce. It doesn't just apply to the food industry. Of course, there's team situations and dynamics all over the professional world. But learning to separate your ego a little bit more from what you're doing all the time to be able to learn is important. That's something as a stubborn person I could admit is a lot harder than it looks. It's and that's part of the reason I've worked really hard this year to work on my positivity. It has not been a shiny road, and I'm still working on it, and I will be for the rest of my damn life. But it's just how it goes sometimes. You have to be willing to embrace the suck. I've had a lot of people tell me that. I had a power lifter before who was teaching me. He took the time out of his day to help the fat kid work out. Basically was what was going on here. And, I love him for that. And shout out to you out there, D, because you're awesome, man. But it actually was one thing that stuck with me the most in my weight loss journey was I was doing jackknives, and he said, "You see how much that hurts?" I was like, "Remember that. Like, it sucks." And he said, "It sucked for all of us, and it doesn't stop sucking. But like, this is how you get your results. You work."
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Very well put.
It's said as a bodybuilder, but there's not many ways to say workout other than do the work. You talk about a hard industry. Fitness is crunch or get crunched. But we kind of sidetracked a little bit. I know that, but this is great too. I know eventually all roads lead to the restaurant industry. Maybe that's for lunch, but could ever really get away. So I'm glad we had that discussion right there. That was great, Warner. Thank you. And honestly, I didn't remember before. I know you were mentioning anime being one of your hobbies. Do you like, or excuse me, what's your favorite animes?
Probably, I have like a couple of them. Claymore is one of them. Fate Stay Night is another one, and the third one I would probably say is Evangelion.
So you said Claymore, and then what was that
Mhm.
second one?
Fate Stay Night.
Fate Stay Night. What's that one about?
It's about. That's really a. It's probably the hardest question you've asked so far. It's just.
I know
I don't know.
you weren't
Man.
ready
It's
for
about
these
like. It's about like the Holy Grail and warrior spirits that get summoned and just King Arthur. You just have to watch it, dude.
All right, well, we'll have to put the list of his recommended animes below, especially for anime fans out there, because yeah, that's gonna be a tradition around here, man. I love anime, and I'm always looking for new anime. I
It's
have
one of
to get
those
through One
early
Piece.
2000s. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm not doing anything, because I'm contemplating my life of getting through One Piece and seeing if it's
Good
possible.
luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had like 5 people tell me this year, yeah, you just catch up, man. I've been binge watched, man, but nothing like that. And for the people unfamiliar, One Piece is pretty well known for its length of episodes. It has over 1,000 episodes, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So quite the crazy
Are
list.
there flashbacks like Naruto?
I actually have not started yet.
Okay.
That was this week I was gonna start. I've been a little tied up with work, but now that I'm adjusted to nights and a zombie again, I can I can work on that stuff on my off
Oh,
time.
we're all zombies, bro. These night shift motherfuckers are zombies.
Man, I've been working a 4 to 4. It's a weird time because I have
Really?
kind of a day, but kind of a night, you know.
That's
And
fucking
yeah,
weird. What, 4 days a week?
yeah, 4 days a week.
4 days a week, 4 to 4.
Thursday to Sundays, yeah. Weird, but the weird part is when I'm doing the shows in between and trying to keep a level head and not look like the zombie that I feel like.
Yep.
Like today I feel great, but the last show, if you look at it, man, I was trying to be interactive, but it's just so hard to keep going on the brain side, brainstorming side of things, you know.
You know what helps
We're
with
only
that?
human. Sleep.
No, these things.
Oh
These
my
things right
god,
here.
man. You know,
I am not sponsored. I'm not sponsored.
oh
by
yeah, and
them.
I could never sponsor it on the show because just, you know, because of the yeah, I mean, we'll take a little since you did that, we'll take a little side street because I used to smoke that. I used to smoke exactly what Warner is demonstrating. For those who don't know and you know me, yeah, I
I kind
smoke
of want one
cigs.
now. Kind of want to
Yeah,
take my
you know, and
laptop
I kind of
outside.
want one too. That's the problem with those things. It's just you got to be very responsible if you're ever gonna get into tobacco.
Should
For a
I
more
take this
mature
down?
audience,
Should I take the laptop downstairs and downstairs and smoke it while on this podcast?
go for it, man. This is gonna be a mature podcast. I'm gonna make sure this one's
All right.
definitely
All right,
yeah, adventure, dude. Hell yeah.
dude. You don't even have to edit it out. I really don't care.
Hey man, we're having a good time today. I'm glad to have you on.
Yeah, this is
Love
baller.
working with Warner, man.
All right, I'm outside.
Yeah, welcome to the World Networking Podcast today, man. We got
I
some
really am
sun.
enjoying it, actually. You shouldn't cut this out. You should keep this in.
We'll keep it in, man. I'm glad to have you here. It's I really do think you should come on the panel. We're actually working.
Wow.
So the Intellectual Adventure panel, or sorry, podcast is one of our newer ventures, and I haven't actually gotten into too many details live on this show about it. But for the viewers interested too, we have a panel currently of 9 members. We're trying to add 2 more members, I believe, to the slot. So we're going to be at 11 members pretty soon here.
It's kind
And
of a big panel.
Yeah, no, we have our plan is to have 3 females. We have currently 1 female. That's our most recent addition to the show. She will be here tomorrow, as of this recording, Christmas Eve, to record with the show. And
Okay.
we have another 8 members. That's our male side of the show, and we're actually most of us have recorded together a few shows now, and we're starting to get our groove, and we're ultimately coming together to create healthy discussions in an environment where we can kind of play devil's advocate. We can bring things to the table, bring research to the table, and in a way that we can interact with our audience through submissions after shows, and that's something we're trying to build towards, is more of an audience dynamic. So if there's anyone they recommend for being a guest on the show, they can come on, be part of that discussion. If they want, they can have a brief excerpt about themselves, kind of what they've done, and what they would bring to the discussion. So that's
I'll
something
do
we're
you
kind
one
of
better.
developing a little bit.
Yeah, I'd
What's
love to be on.
Yeah,
Love to
yeah,
be on
no,
as a guest or anything.
yeah. If you're ever available Sundays, right now it's at 8 a.m. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, shoot, Warner, tomorrow we're gonna be recording. If you would really like to, you're more than welcome. We're probably gonna have one other guest, so you're not even gonna be alone. You would have a buddy.
I'll see. I'll try. I'll see. I got to work tomorrow, but
Yeah, yeah,
usually I
no,
get Sundays off. Usually I get Sundays off, so I'll probably be able to make it. But it's Christmas week, so I'm working more. So
no, I get that, man. I had a
yeah,
feeling you'd be working, honestly. So
that's the other thing about line cooks, man. If you want to be a good line cook, you better give up all those holidays.
yeah, man, that's no joke. There's some real sacrifices made in the restaurant industry on time. I have
Yep.
seen some people, man, they live at the restaurant. Um,
Yep.
like, and you know what? For all those people out there that think they want that taco truck or that restaurant, and they've never worked it before, let me tell you, you better work some before, and make sure that's something you want to financially invest in, because it's not for everyone. And you do not want to be the person I've seen multiple times owning a restaurant that's sitting there miserable, because they do not know how to run it. And if
Yep.
you are, you better have a head chef or a head cook, that knows what they're doing on inventory and such, because
I'll do you one better. If you don't know those things yourself, if you don't know what your restaurant needs, if you can't prep it, you can't cook it, and you can't sell it, then you shouldn't run a restaurant. You should know every single which way that restaurant runs. You should know how the toilet flushes. You should know which pipe the the sinks in the bathrooms are connected to. You should know like every single thing about that restaurant. And you should be willing to work that entire restaurant yourself if you have nobody there to work it with you. If you're not willing to do that, then I don't think you would be willing to face the competition that's on the market right now, because there's definitely food trucks, restaurants, and people out there that are willing to do that and that are doing that very successfully.
oh, absolutely, yeah, it's
Mhm.
cutthroat, man. You have to be willing to make those sacrifices, or you will not make it. And people are
Yep.
demanding, especially like one of the biggest sins new restaurants make, and this is not just something I'm making up here. It's something that's been quoted by professional chefs. Is you make a menu that's too big, and then you reduce your menu, and then everyone's like, "Oh, come on, man! Like, you
Yep.
can't supply the thing I liked," and then they get upset, and you
Always.
you, you made a
Yep.
needless situation out of something you could have prevented just by planning out properly.
You got to start small and then you get bigger. You never start big and go small. You start big and go small. That means your restaurant has problems. That means you didn't plan it out right.
Place I used to work, they had, I want to say, close to 45 things on the menu. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's way too
it
much.
kept adding and adding, eggs Benedict, all these fancy meals that sounded great, right? You know, it sounded like they were prospering. They were shut down within 2 years of me working there, 2 or 3.
Yep.
And you know, I wasn't surprised because again, you go in thinking that you're, and again, it can be ego. If you're a new guy on the block, eventually people are that puppy love goes away, and they're just looking for the value, the punch,
Yep.
that they need for the day, and if you're not providing
It's
that
not.
punch,
Yep. It's got to be good value for money, or they're not coming back. Especially in these times, groceries are $80 for 3 days of groceries. Like, you're not going to be coming back if it's not value for money. You're just not.
no, it's a real thing out there right now, man. The
Yeah.
grocery list, there's a reason why all these restaurants, even your local McDonald's, pumping up the price, man. Maybe McDonald's is actually the worst example because their prices have actually stayed pretty low. I'll be real. I go
Yeah.
there and I know people complain about McDonald's, but I'm like, this is not bad, man. Comparatively to other
Yeah, they
things.
can afford to keep them low. They can
Yep.
afford it.
No, yeah, no, that's great about the anime and everything we touched base on. I honestly think move forward on your education side of things. Are there any things that you studied in school that you found interesting?
I would say
So when you were in school?
the biggest contribution I had to my education when I was in school was developing a love for English.
Really?
When I first went to college, when I first went to college, I was an art major because I wanted to be a mangaka, which is a guy that makes manga, like Japanese cartoons, because I wanted to tell stories through cartoons, you know. But I fell in love with my ex-wife, and she kind of did a lot to help me let go of a lot of my resentment towards America and American society based on what I experienced coming here. Um, and then so I switched to English because I wanted to just tell stories, you know. And I really developed a love of more specifically British literature during the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. Yeah. I found the way that they use language very elegant and beautiful. And I developed a passion for it. So I studied that, and that's what I got my degree in.
You know, if I may, it's very interesting because, and I'm not trying to sound funny here, but I've been raised around Western philosophies and Western society, of course. I mean, I've been over the border to Mexico once, but that's as far as I've gotten out of the country. I really haven't traveled much when it comes to that, but I mean, the U.S. is massive. Everyone knows that. You can travel here for days and have no problems being entertained. So I'm still trying to do that in little spurts. But what's interesting is I love poetry and wordplay and philosophy, and the Eastern philosophy and writings that I've studied it. I find very similar values in that kind of stuff, where I feel like it's very it's I mean, it's obviously super poetic in a lot of forms, like haikus. Uh, it's one of my favorite forms of writing, just because of how simple in nature it can be. It grounds you. You know, you have to slow down and slow down your writing to accommodate your space, and
Mhm.
you had to find balance. That's something I value with it. If I'm really feeling out of tune, you know, maybe I'll write a haiku or two, and that really helps me value my time in the ways I think. And
Mhm.
it helps me to understand what it means to be a human. And sometimes that means you're going to struggle and you have to slow down and you have to apply yourself to a situation. You may not know the result, but that doesn't mean the result can't be beautiful. It can't be valuable. And so that's something I just, um, it's again, like we come from different sides of life, but I can see that we value similar things in when it comes to language, and I think that's really cool.
I have more to add to that. Actually, I worked a
Absolutely.
job a few years ago when I lived in Eugene, Oregon. I volunteered for a job doing um, trail restoration for basically the BLM. It was part of the AmeriCorps. It was the Northwest Youth Corps, which is part of AmeriCorps. And I think AmeriCorps is part of like Peace Corps or something like that. But basically, they get government grants and they go out to national forests and stuff like that to do conservation. Um, During this experience, we were camping out in Idaho for the most part, in basically southeast Idaho through the fall, and it was 5 week program, and we would spend about 6 days in the woods, and then we would go back into town for one day to do like laundry and showers and things like that, because we didn't have showers out there. Um, During this pretty like physically demanding experience, you make friends, you get really close with the people over there. I had a really good buddy. His name, I'm sure he will not mind if I put it on this podcast because he's really such an open, loving, like great-hearted guy. It's just like a really good guy, just like one of just freaking great guy, Um, he just always has something really nice to say when we're smoking a cigarette or we're just tired after doing the trail work all day, and he's just chilling out there, and he's just really great guy. And Brad, if you're out there, man, and you ever listen to this, man, I'm still thinking about you. Always wishing you well and hoping you have positive everything. Um, he was really interesting dude because he's sort of like super hippie dude from Michigan. And he's interesting because he knew more about Buddhism than me. And I grew up in Hong Kong, and I'm like, oh, I'm the Chinese guy. Of course, I'm gonna know like all this Buddhist like shit, whatever. But actually, when I was hanging out with him, he like was so well read and like educated about like Buddhism, and he's like teaching me about like the sixfold noble path and all this like Buddhist stuff. And then like wow, like he really made me like humble, because he's like he knows my own supposed culture more than I do, even though I'm like so proud to be like American Chinese, whatever, But he's like teaching me all this stuff. And then I remember this one conversation we had towards the end of our trip where we're really, really close buddies at this point. And we really had like a lot of conversations like in the night, like really deep late into the night. It's one of those times we're just sitting out there smoking a cigarette. And then he's like, one of the team members we had not just us, but like everyone had a big problem with because they just really weren't doing a great job, giving a lot more work to the rest of us. If one person doesn't pull their weight, especially you're doing super hard labor where you're like digging trails and stuff like that, carrying rocks, all this, like then you really feel the effect of if someone is like, not pulling their weight. So everyone was kind of pissed off at this like one person. And then like he was like, oh, so today you had this interaction with this one person and I saw you got really pissed off. And he was like, and I was like, yeah. And he was like, how did you feel? And I was like, oh, all this stuff. I want to tell her she's. And then he was like, okay, cool. So I want you to take a moment to think about how negative you felt about her today. Just like 10 to 20, 30 seconds. Like, just think about it. And I was like, all right. And I like thought about, yeah, she was this person really not pulling their weight. And I had to do this. I had to do that. I was hungry. I cut my finger because I had to do this thing that this person didn't do. The water that this person was supposed to purify, like they didn't add enough bleach, or if you purify water out there, you need to add a specific ratio of the bleach to the water, or it's like it either doesn't purify enough, or it makes the water too toxic because there's too much bleach. So this person like messed up the ratio, and like the water's like tasting weird, and I just like was venting, And then he was like, okay, good. After 30 seconds, now I want you to think about 30 seconds, like say the good things about her, this person. And I was like, wow, shoot, okay, that's really difficult. This person's nice. This person's never raised this person's voice, and I just kind of like had to force myself to think positively about this person that I was just really upset with in this one moment. And then he was like, good, now you've done that for 30 seconds. You are coming closer to being a balanced person. And I'm like, holy crap with your goddamn Buddhist crap, man. But also it blew my mind because ever since then, I've always had a more patient approach, even with meeting with people that I don't necessarily like, or they like my first impression of them is, not very good. I always remember what he taught me, because you force yourself to think about bad things about them, and you force yourself to think about good things about them. And guess what? You realize then that they're actually people. They're actually, maybe the way they're acting in a way that you don't like is not because they're just a bad person, but because they have needs that you don't see and that you don't understand. And they're trying to accommodate them in a way that goes against what you are trying to do. And the best way to go about that situation is to understand them deeper so that you can find a solution that helps you and helps them in a positive way. But that requires like deeper understanding from you and like patience from you, and like being able to see people in like that dual type of way, not just like, oh, this guy pissed me off and now I'm going to be mad at him. Like you got to be able to like have that, but you also got to be able to like what Brad said, think the positive. And he taught me that on that trip, and it stuck with me ever since.
That's really awesome, man. That's a hard thing to stay balanced. I struggle with that one a lot. People that interact with me a lot, I know they know. I'm not good at hiding that. I can run my mouth.
Oh, even I know. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, it's.
I like it about you, bro. I like that about you.
I try to be honest about that, and especially with this show, man, because I want to grow with the show. I want to develop myself and work on myself, and part of that is accountability. And it's something I've been trying to voice because I want to see change in myself. And if someone could take this journey with me and work on the road towards positivity a little more, as someone who used to consider themselves a doomer, I feel like I've gotten pretty far. It's helped me get through a lot of my depression, and staying positive at the workplace is 50% of that for me. Some people, it's like 70% of that is I got to do music or I got to do fitness. It's different for everyone on the ratio, but for me, it's like if I'm idle, I'm freaking out. I can't just be idle. I got to be doing something, and it's part of the reason I have trouble sleeping, and sleep has a lot to do with it too, and that's something I've worked on in the recent last 2 months, especially. And I have to vouch, as a person who sleeps a little bit more, you really got to get your sleep, guys, and sleep is really important for development. Again, this is a more mature podcast episode, so I'm not speaking towards kids here as much, or younger teen audience, but I do think that it's important that everyone keeps that in mind. You're never too old for sleep. As stubborn as you think you are, you're not above it. We all need it. Please take care of yourself. Take care of your body. It's important. We have enough medical problems in the system. We don't need more from sleep deprivation. That's something you can prevent, and I'm sure that health personnel would agree that they would much rather see you sleep if you can, man.
Yeah,
But
I absolutely agree. I used to be the type of kid that I hated going to bed. Every time my mom was like, bedtime, I was like, fuck that. I ain't going to bed. I got video games to play, motherfucker. These fucking video games, this GTA ain't gonna play itself. WoW ain't gonna play itself. I want to stay up. I want to go on a raid. I want to do another mission. I have all this energy. I am not lying down. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care about sleep. I'll go to school in the morning. It's fine.
man, I'm gonna send that clip to Asmongold. I want to stay up. Oh wow, I want to do a raid.
That motherfucker's hanging in there. I don't know how the fuck he's hanging in there.
Man,
probably doing shots of coffee or some shit. But I get it. Like, here's the thing though. When you're young, you don't feel the limits of your body. And when you're young, you can push past the limits of your body without thinking about it. And you can do it a lot. Like when you're young, you can get plastered, you can get fucking puking, like drunk. You can get trashed. And you get a good meal afterwards. You have a salad, you have a coffee, you'll be fine in the morning. Try to do that when you're over 30, dude. Like, try and do that when you've been working 2 jobs for 8.5 years. Okay. Like, you're not gonna have it in you, man. Like, I used to be like, I could party all night. I used to put away half a bottle of whiskey every day, chain smoke a pack of cigarettes every day, and then go to work and not give a crap. You can only do that for so long. Something's got to give. And when your body gives, you don't ever get it back. That's the one thing my old man, my dad told me. Health, it's great when you have it, but when it goes, you never get it back. You have to protect it. You have to be careful with your health. Because once you get sick, once you start chain smoking cigarettes and then there's something wrong with your lungs, you got to cut back forever. You're never going to be able to smoke a pack a day again. You got to cut back forever. It does permanent damage, recurring permanent damage to you. And you have to realize that. I realized that, and I still currently smoke cigarettes. I ain't going to lie. You saw me do it. But I have that consciously in my mind. There's a limited amount of time. You have to take care of your body. It might seem hypocritical coming from me because I do smoke cigarettes. I'm going to say is that I will say that one negative thing about the service industry, and I'm just going to be upfront 110% with y'all, it encourages bad coping habits.
100%.
Nicotine, caffeine, nicotine, lack of sleep, adrenaline, alcohol, weed, everything you can think of. The restaurant industry 110% encourages negative coping mechanisms. And I am not gonna lie, one reason why I love the restaurant industry, because it's so much fun. Because that shit is fun. I ain't gonna lie. After getting slammed, on a game day, you get slammed all day, and then you kick back with a beer with your buddies. You start smoking weed. You start smoking cigarettes, kicking back after you all get hit. That is so dopamine releasing, and it is such a positive feeling. It's really hard not to get addicted to that. It really is. I am currently addicted to that. I'm still addicted to that, and I don't know if I'm ever not going to be addicted to that. But I also have a realistic perspective on the limits of my body and how much I can do. I'm 32. I'm going to be 40. There's just a limit on how much you can do this. One part of the restaurant industry, if you want to stay in this industry long, you've got to limit your craziness and it's going to be crazy. You're going to have ball parties. You're going to have bartenders at your parties. They're going to make drinks. You're going to have line cooks serving everybody. They're going to have beer. They're going to have food. Everything like rocks when you're hanging out with service people. The parties are insane, but they will make you grow old, and you have to like pace yourself with them. You know, that's all I'm saying. Just a little bit of advice of people that want to get into this industry, and they can
Yeah.
hear it in my voice, like I chain smoke, like they can hear it.
Some of my darkest moments, I gotta admit, and this is nothing at you, but I mean, yeah, the restaurant industry really, really incentivized my nicotine habits, because a lot of it came from my anxiety in the industry itself. I never felt like I was prepared enough to deal with people, um, even
Mm-hmm.
just guests. Like, I worked a lot of the front end. I worked more, well, I don't know. I kind of had an actual 50-50 split of working front end and back end. Because I worked about 6.5 years of the industry myself, and I didn't really nice piece, by the way. I didn't really have problems going into the industry with, like, I was working, or before the industry, I was working side jobs, janitorial work, but I was doing like um, ranching, like farmhand kind of stuff, and
I've done that
landscaping.
too.
Yeah, a lot of things to just make money under the table, really, with neighbors and local projects for elderly, especially. I like doing that because they needed the help, man. It's just a fact. People don't think as much nowadays that, hey, as much as we can be upset at these older generations, like, there's still people that deserve to have warmth in the winter and food on their table. Like, it's not their fault they grow physically and capable of doing some of this stuff themselves. And
Everyone.
I've had the pleasure, the great honor of helping a lot of elderly people, and I know a few of them have passed away since I helped them. But like at least I was there to give them a good experience that fall or that winter, and help shovel them out or whatnot. And um, it taught me some of the values that helped me get through the restaurant industry, which was, I appreciate people, and that's something I appreciate through my work is if I can connect with that person without speaking, if I can connect through my actions, then that's a better approach, because ultimately they can't miss it. What are they going to have to complain about? If I'm talking up a storm and I'm potentially wasting time to them. I don't know everyone I've worked for intimately, or with. It's impossible for all of us to know. There's just some things that you have to learn how to address generally, and that takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot of time to listen and understand that people are very different and they have very different reactions from one another. You can't take it personally all the time, and that's hard to do, especially with teams. And that's something we've established with this. But I am kind of digressing. It's I when I went into the restaurant industry, I didn't. It was all the extra money I started having, especially in a rural community. And this is the trouble I have: is restaurant industry is one of the better jobs in a rural community, because it's potentially consistent
Because
through the
it's a
season.
rural community. Yep.
Yeah. And people want to eat out in the mornings, man. People always want their morning coffee, their morning eggs. Like, there's you get people that are pretty traditional in the mountains, and people we're in America. People like to eat, that's nothing new, and you know, there's a reason my hometown of 5,000 people has 16 restaurants. That's all I'm saying. You know, like that's an insane amount of food places to have in such a small little area. The connections I started making from that affected how I invested that money I was getting. And a lot of it became, oh, well, so and so does it. Or, you know, it helps me with my work. So I might as well do it. And that's something I've found myself saying the most. And it's even an acted excuse because, I mean, you've seen it. I vape, and I've been trying to lower my nicotine. I'm trying to get off of salt nic. There's one thing I can say from personal experience in vaping and smoking. If you're really trying to, I guess, do the least amount of damage to yourself with nicotine, in my humble opinion, stay away from salt nic. Just don't do it. Do low milligram glycerin. You know, do a 3% or 3 milligram or a 6 milligram, but don't be doing the 50 milligram salt nicks. I have had a terrible time with these. My stomach feels terrible, and you know the problem is, I think my problem with it is when I used to smoke, I would smoke tobacco out of a bong, and I did that for like 3 years, and that's damaging to your stomach. So I don't know if that damaged my stomach a while ago. Probably did. Can't see how it didn't. But salt nic, you ask any smoker out there and who's smoked cigs and they're hesitant about the vaping, it's because they know that the salt nicks have such a high concentration of that nicotine. It's like smoking a pack a day, almost through this. I mean, it really is that concentrated, and I want to emphasize for people that maybe were interested and, you know, maybe had someone's pin sometimes. Oh, that feels nice. I understand, but you can get just as much value out of a lower nicotine quantity. You don't need that high nicotine quantity all the time. You really don't. And something like he's smoking blacks, that's strong, but that's not this strong. And that's the reason I'm having to whittle down. I'm literally having to increment myself down because I have done this for so long. My tolerance is just, I need it. I just need it. It's my coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I drink coffee, you know, like, but that's
my
something.
opinion.
Yeah.
With all due respect, I disagree. I'm at my fundamental heart, I'm a liberal. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. If you want to smoke crack every day, smoke crack every day. If it is good for you, do it.
It's fair
I don't
enough.
judge the value of life on how much damage you do to your body. I judge the value of life on how well you spend your time on this earth. There are people that don't do any damage to their body and they spend their time on this earth doing terrible things for a long time. There's people that damage their body and they do great things. And they do wonderful things. If what you have to do to deal with getting through to doing those wonderful things is fucking smoking up, fucking do it. I've been there. Sometimes all you want to do is fucking burn it. I have been there, man. Like, I've been there after a long fucking day. At least 14 hours grinding on the line, full screens for at least 5 hours. You're going hard. And the only thing you want to do is just burn it. If your buddy has one of those salt nicks and you hit off that and you're feeling fucking great, fuck it, man. You just grafted. You just grinded for 6 hours. Fuck it. Doesn't matter at that point. But be responsible also about your actions. Understand. You partake in this, you're burning the candle at both ends. You're going to have a shorter candle, but it's going to give off a beautiful light. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a bright light, but it's going to burn fast. That's the reality. If you can accept that, accept it. You know, if you can't, you can't. Then stop smoking. I accept it. I can roll with that. I'm good with it. I don't want to live long. I want to live well. I don't care about how long I live. Like, I've already lived long enough, man. It ain't get better than this. It's kind of shitty, honestly. Like, look at the country. It's like, it's very depressing where we're at politically, economically, societally. You know, everyone, it seems like everyone's trying to just survive. And it's a brutal world out there. You know, so I'd say don't live long because you don't want more of this. Live well, live better, eat good, you know, live good, raise animals, have a garden, take care of your kids, you know, that kind of shit. Live well, not live long. I don't care about living long. If you want to fucking do all that shit and then smoke a salt nick, do it. I don't give a fuck. You know, people get killed in car accidents all the time. Driving is one of the most lethal things we do. You don't see people freaking out. No one's gonna give up their motorcycle. You know, I'm gonna fucking ride my motorcycle the day I die because I don't give a shit. I know it's gonna kill me. You know, I'm open to that. That's why I have a life insurance policy. If you want to be responsible, do stupid shit, get a life insurance policy. At least everyone gets paid out in the end. It's the least you can do for your folks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. And I honestly am just speaking from the heart, on my personal behalf. I Because I've been in dark places mentally where balance hasn't been there. And I guess that's all I'm saying is in a sense Warner's trying to say similar is balance is important. If you can't handle this ratio of existence that you're at, you have to change or you have to adapt. Like you're either changing or that's changing. There's no in between. If it's not working, it's not working. That's why some people smoke, some people don't. I mean, tobacco, weed. There's a bunch of things that a lot of people feel various ways about, and again, I like to think that nicotine's my enemy, right? Because I'm always going up and down with it, but it's really it really is just a balance. Balance is my enemy at times,
Mhm.
and I need to. It's hard to work on it, and you know what you're saying about life and living well. Um, I hear you there. I hear you. It's it is hard to see where society's the direction society's heading. I really do think the survival aspect, what you're saying there, is true. A lot of people do feel that way. A direct need to associate directly with that. Up and like, I mean, if we're talking people leaving that work, telling others to get gas masks. You know, uh,
Mhm.
people take this stuff seriously. It's no joke. People are preparing, and um, all I can say is that there's a reason I'm putting the show out. It's not to be funny or look good. It's really genuinely to connect with the people around us, with the community, to maybe better understand this stuff. I wanted to develop this show in a sense where we're able to take this information, the community from this show, if they want, and build off of it with their own life. Ultimately, take it and use it. If it's of use to you, if any of this knowledge is of use to you, take it. It's what I've done in life. I wouldn't know anything if I didn't look at the surroundings, and look at books and articles and look at those details and textbooks that maybe show me things that the class itself wouldn't. There's all sorts of ways that you can seek knowledge, working knowledge, mental fortitude, patience. Like it all kind of correlates into this bank of knowledge, and it's nothing to shy away from. There's many forms of it. It's like love. You can say that you love things, but do you really love them, or do you like them? It has everything to do with perspective. And like Warner pointed out, I agree with his perspective. In all reality, with the tobacco, I don't have any reason to disagree, because I've seen it actively. I've been in those situations too, where I too have wanted that massive relieving hit, where it's the end of the day, it's the end of the shift. I want to separate myself from society. Man, why would I want to be a part of that today? Why? Like, what do I owe it? It owes me, and you genuinely get upset over that kind of stuff, and or you don't, and you move forward, and you understand that that's a feeling, and that's kind of the route I've tried to steer more towards. Is I understand I'm going to be angry. It's kind of something that I can never 100% eliminate. Is my temperament. There's always going to be a part of me, a part of my biological self where I tend to not like people chewing with their mouths open. Yeah, that's always going to piss me off. I don't think there's anything I can do that will 100% make me okay and content with dealing with that situation. But there's always a dynamic to it that I can minimize. And that's my emotional exertion, my reaction, and slowing yourself down to understand that each movement you make, each comment you say is something that you're presenting yourself with. Once you understand that's where foolery happens. If you don't understand your balance, you can quickly become that fool because you're not checking yourself. And again, it's like, what right do I have to tell you how to live your life? But I can recommend, on my perspective, what's worked for me. You could say for scientific research. Maybe that's just a realist in me, but yeah, I document things, and I've always liked documenting various elements of things for that reason, because maybe there's something down the road that someone, maybe 100 years from now will gain understanding from, because they don't live in the time we're at. And I appreciate history for that reason. And actually, I know this has been a loop of conversation, and I'm loving this personally. But I think that we could touch. This would be a perfect time to touch on geopolitics, if that's something you would like to touch on. Let's
go.
What's so interesting about that has you intrigued?
The fact that men will always be men. I think that's all it boils down to, really. Not to discount all the women out there involved in geopolitics, but it just seems like the same tired game played over and over again, with more and more interesting pieces. And where are the pieces?
So it's essentially something you feel is mostly out of the general public's control.
Yeah, I mean,
Or would you
it
say
affects everything.
like it's
It
such a
affects.
part of human nature that we're like tied in with it?
I would say it is such a controlling aspect of our experience that we don't realize unless in very subtle, specific ways. The main reason how I noticed geopolitics was really through gaming. Like when I first started playing video games, you could buy and own a video game. You would buy the CD, you would own the CD. You had a CD key and you owned it, it was your property. And then now, like as the years go by, they had these things where you no longer needed the CD and you just bought it directly online and they just gave you a CD key so they could like turn on and off your game, because you needed to download it from their server because you didn't have a physical hard disk with it. You had to download it. So they didn't want you to access the server. They just turn off your game. You stopped having ownership of your game, and then they started selling you DLCs, downloadable content. Like you started having DLCs for everything, and then games went from like one game for like I don't know $29, and you had at least 12 to 15 hours of single player gameplay, like as a shooter, became like 6 to 10 hours for $59, and then DLCs if you wanted like online stuff. And now it's like for Total War, for example, you need DLCs if you even want blood in your game. Like blood used to just come in the game. Now you just got to pay more money if you want blood in the game. Like everything's like locked behind a paywall, and you're starting to wonder like why everything is like locked behind a paywall. Why everything is like costing more and more. And you look into like the development process of these games and how like certain companies are acquiring the rights to certain games and buying out the developers and then like running them down to a skeleton crew to cut costs, you know? And then they just come out with like shittier games, and you realize just like everything that you like and that you experience is just like owned by corporations. And they'll just take something that you fell in love with, like when you were a kid, like, like when I was a kid, like fucking Halo 3 and like Halo ODST, like the trailers came out and it was like almost like they were real. Like they were like for the real military almost. They were so fucking real. Like the trailers came out and then like the ODST were landing and they were shooting fucking aliens, and then like ODST dudes were getting hit and they were like dragging their buddies through the fire, and you're like, oh fuck. And there was like this whole like funeral scene where there was like the Scottish like bagpipes playing and they're like burying the dead Marines or the like it's like playing like the Scottish bagpipes and they're all doing like the tan hot and they're like firing all the rifles and you're like, holy fuck, this is so real, And now it's just like that was peak gaming when it was like made for the experience of the gamer, kind of like how food should be made for the experience of the diner. And now games are like made for the profit of the shareholders instead of the experience of the gamer. That's why we have 15 different DLCs on release day, and we have season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subscription pack, and then we have like DLCs on top of that, and we have like deluxe mode, and we have like collector's edition. We have all this like bullshit. So just having a fucking game, and it's lost its purity. It's lost its purity because it's been corrupted, just like everything else. Like movies, fucking entertain. Like music is like trash now. Movies are fucking garbage now. Like books are kind of garbage now. Like everything's like kind of trash because it's been kind of like recycled and like just used by corporations to generate profit instead of go after original creative entertainment that's not focused on the profit but the creativity and the originality and the expression of what the vision of that particular artist is. Like right now they're not worried about that. They just want to sell tickets, so that we've lost all this creativity and we've become this like kind of cultural dead zone where we're like, our movies are shit, our games are shit, DLCs everywhere, like music's just kind of garbage, rehash, nothing original. TV series are just garbage. Like everything's kind of just trash. I don't know if it's just me, because I'm an English major or whatever the fuck, but like I just personally, I haven't. I don't even remember the last time I went out to like buy a movie ticket, just go watch a movie, because I was excited about it because I watched the trailers and I like wanted to watch it. Like I used to do that shit all the time back in like early 2000s, late 2000s even, but after kind of 2014, 2010, it was just like downhill, and that was just kind of just not exciting at all.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. It's definitely a problem with media, the Hollywood situation, especially where you have cinema that's, I mean, it's extra revealing in trailers. Everyone knows that. There's a bunch of stuff where, yeah, it's just boring. It doesn't seem like there was much effort put in, much thought put into that part. It's like, oh no, we gotta hook them in. We gotta clickbait them with the cool animations.
Yeah, I was about to say, like it's always got such great special effects. Like it's like a triple A game or something. Like it's like super animated, like super like A-list actors, like mainstream actors, but then it just kind of looks just generic and just not original. Like you've seen the story before, you've seen the same character before. It's not going to be any sort of original struggle or groundbreaking way of looking at society or politics or anything. It's just going to be like some lame, like stereotypical story.
No, but that made me think. Something to ask you is, do you think there could be a possibility for like a localization renaissance, where you essentially have people going back and reverting back to grassroots support? Because I
Yeah,
really think
absolutely.
in the next, like, it's probably really going to be slow, because I'll be real with you. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to have a hard time with changes that are going to come, especially with the food supply and prices. Like, it is a big thing to push towards farming and local sustainability. At least having sources where you can pick up those local produce and local foods, uh, proteins. Making sure you have a clean source of protein. And people don't think about that kind of stuff enough. But I think that a localization renaissance, so to speak, it's something we might see in the next like 30 years, probably 20, where people are seeing the value in that human connection. But it really has a lot to do with how AI affects society and how fast. Because if they see the benefits of having AI in their life, and being connected with, say most AIs have to be connected with manufacturing implementation, where you're getting things shipped out all the time in big quantities. It's going to be tougher. It depends on where the sources come from. Like metal, societies need metal. Like there's and some of these rural communities just can't support some of their needs without being linked to the distribution chain. So that's kind of what trips me up is how that would work, especially in a place like the United States, where states don't tend to agree with each other.
If you're envisioning a general collapse of the United States, I wouldn't worry about the supply of, for example, specific commodities such as metal. What I would worry about most is the ability of individual communities to come together, to come together, because the number one resource you have in an apocalypse scenario is not what you can personally or individually hoard or produce. It's actually how well your local community can band together to survive. Because you're never going to be able to outproduce a cohesive unit of close community that are bonded with each other, that help each other. You're just not going to be able to do it. So I think my advice to people that are envisioning an apocalypse scenario is to find yourself in a position where you have great neighbors that you are willing to produce certain things for, that you can trade certain things for from them. Like, you're not going to be able to produce all the metal, all the chickens, all the dairy, all the water, all the stuff for your own farm. You produce one specific commodity. You do all the eggs and the poultry, and you trade that for the bacon and the pork lard and, the bone broth, and you trade it for the pork skin. You trade it for the innards and the sausages. That type of thing. No one's going to be able to do everything at once. Also, find a community where you can relate to your neighbors and integrate with them and be productive in different things. Like, they grow a certain thing, you grow a certain thing, and help each other out. That's the best way to move forward, not isolating yourself or thinking that you can produce or hoard everything yourself. That's a mistake in survival. No one can survive by themselves. If you do survive by yourself, you're nothing living more than a caveman. It's going to be like worse than The Walking Dead. You're going to need a community of like-minded people that can cooperate with you. The best way to do that is be cooperative with other people and be productive and provide something that is of value to the community.
I agree. No, that's honestly really great take. It's a great way to word it. It's one of those subjects that there's a lot of ways that it could go wrong, right? It's situational. I mean, EMP is one of those things that a lot of people have fantasized about. And I'm not saying it's a fantasy, but I am saying that, yeah, you could think that your whole life and then boom, mega volcano destroys the world or something. Like, I don't. There's a lot of things. There's a potential for imbalance all over the planet, but we gotta take it while we have it. And I don't mean let's destroy the world and use it. Like, I mean, you gotta make the most of what you're given in any given situation. At least if you want to try to find a positive perspective out of it, because tell you, I hear this kind of stuff a lot. It's hard to, especially as a podcast host, it's hard to stay positive, man. But I'm doing it because I want to see society move in a positive direction, and if I can be a light for that, I would love to do so, because I value that, man. I want everyone's kids and the younger generation to feel like there's people out there trying. Because that's something I valued when I was young. I felt like, we could be doing more as a species. Why aren't we doing that? Like, it takes work, and it's intimidating as all hell. I know for a fact there's nothing I could do in my lifetime to fix what's going on. Anyone who thinks that is completely ignorant. These problems are way beyond us. They've been way beyond a single individual for a long time. But what we can affect are how our families' lives are, and how our neighbors, how we interact in with the society around us, and what we add to that situation now, especially building some groundworks for the youth. I know a lot of people want to give the youth hell right now for work habits, especially, but when you're dealing with these kinds of pressures, you got to understand it doesn't feel like you're being very human anymore. It feels like you're being a statistic, and that affects people mentally, and that's not going to help if we keep pushing this narrative that they're so different from us. We need to work together. We need to take those conversations and allow a dynamic of learning to happen. You can't just expect these people who are overly exposed to go straight into college and know what they're doing. They don't. Most times. It's very hard to focus with all the noise going on these days. And that's something I've talked to people a lot. Like, we're in the information age. We're in an age where information's coming in at such a rate you could never keep up daily.
Absolutely, and I think that the youth these days have quite an unfair reputation of being lazy or not hardworking, when in fact, statistically, a lot more youths nowadays have two or more jobs compared to the baby boomers in equivalent time period. Like, inflation is definitely a significant factor. The dollar goes a lot less now than it did in 1970, 60, 80. People are working two jobs or more and still not making ends meet or barely. And that's just a reality. I really don't care what the Biden administration says, but the economy is not doing great and it's not been the greatest in history, like I'm sure they've said.
No. Oh, they
It's
have.
terrible.
Yeah, I don't.
Everyone knows it's terrible. You don't have to hear or take my word for it. Just ask yourself next time you go buy your groceries. Okay, like you need to listen to me. You know, at least that's my reasoning. You know, if I go to groceries and then my groceries are cheap and affordable, I don't think the economy's doing that bad. When if I go to groceries and I think, what in God's name is $80 when I barely got 4 or 5 things, you know, and it's going to last me 2 3 days. Yeah, I don't think the economy's doing great. That's just my uneducated opinion. I was not an economics major. Okay, that's just all I'm saying.
No, it
Um,
shows what you value too. Like, again, you work in the food industry, you value food,
yeah,
and so of course you're going to reflect your opinion on, or your opinion is going to reflect that.
yeah. I mean, I've even seen it in the industry where they're substituting ingredients for cheaper things, more
Yeah,
preservatives, more canned things. You know, there's just not many fresh items anymore. There's still logistical issues from COVID where the trucks are still coming in late or with the incorrect produce. I just had a situation at my current job. I'm not going to name it, but yeah, definitely some issues with the supplier that day. The wrong burgers, buns were supplied. I mean, it doesn't seem like the supply chain is at all healthy right now, and it can barely withstand any additional stress. And yet, the only thing we see is, probably more conflict worldwide. It's going to lead to increased prices at home. We're going to be subsidizing people that, you know, are overseas, and at home things are going to increase in price as they have been doing for the past, at least, I mean, realistically, since 2006 or 8, if anyone can remember till back then. But in the last 4 or 5 years, even young people can feel it. And if young people can feel it, like, you really know that it's increasing at an extremely high rate. You know,
yeah,
I mean, who might have said young people are the most educated in the political or financial realm? Of course not. When you're young, you're busy going out on dates. You know, you're going to the game, you're partying, whatever you're doing, what young people do. No one's worrying about the economy or price of groceries when you're, 18 years old. But now you have young people working more jobs and then they're still worrying about the price of groceries. I mean, it's not for lack of trying. It's lack of faith that the system has the ability to provide for any of us.
yeah, yeah. It's a
You
it's
know?
a sure distrust of
Yeah.
society. There's a
And
distrust in society. That's the root of the problem. That's why a lot of people
is
think there's
that
going to be civil war.
is that young people's fault or is that society's fault? Maybe you can say 50-50 to be fair, okay? Let's say half and half. Let's be fair. But either way, it's still half and half.
Absolutely. The finger pointing game never works. You know,
Mhm.
it is we're on one ship, and if it's sinking, none of us can be happy.
Yeah, we're all going to drown.
And that's like but it's again why we learn and why we adapt. We're an adaptive species. We can overcome a lot of hardships. As long as we don't get in nuclear war, we can still recover. I believe we can still recover. We just have to wisen up, and we have to use the tools around us.
I mean, I'm definitely the least religious person out there, but I definitely pray that we don't go through a nuclear war.
Me too,
And
man.
it's really programs like this that continue to probably hold the line for peace, and we should continue doing this.
This show, or
Yeah, like things
absolutely,
like these.
I agree. And
Yeah.
that's motivation for others out there too. I want this show to help people realize that conversations have power. They have weight. You can learn from each other only if you form an opinion yourself. You at some point you have to draw a line for yourself to understand who you are. I don't know what I want to do ultimately as a end all career. That's something I've struggled with, and I still struggle with. I This year has really hit me with that. But when you look at the situation at hand, it's like I struggle because I'm already doing what I want to do, and
Interesting.
that's the hard part. Is like I I want progress, and I'm moving in a way of progress for myself, and so it doesn't really matter what I'm working, what I'm doing in a career. To be honest, as long as I can find some pride and some respect through my work, for the work, then I don't. I only have things to be thankful for. I really don't have a reason to find ill, and that's I think where I've made the mistakes in the past is what's my. It's not like I planned what's my way out, but it's like you're not going to be there forever. It's up to interpretation. That's why communicating is important. We might be interpreting life in a backward sense. You would never know if you never communicated.
You definitely, communication is the thing that kind of makes you realize who you are, I think. Because you find out things that you wouldn't otherwise have realized.
Yeah, I struggle with that one. That one's
Yeah.
extremely hard for me. This show should be plenty proof. I've had plenty of backwards comments on here, and I don't mean that in an offensive sense, but in a sense where I'm literally saying things backwards in the third perspective, or I'm hopping, and it's really, really, really hard for me to not get mad at myself, frustrated with myself for not not being better at this. Like at this point, I've almost done this a year, and I've been doing live performances for years. Like that's frustrating to me because I would hope, again, I would have hoped in the past that I could have affected that in my future, for my future. And here I am in the future, and I still have the same struggles. The thing is, practice makes perfect. There's sometimes the trial by fire is the practice. And my job right now, the only way I get active working experience is when the product is being produced actively. If there's any screw ups, we have to fix it directly, right then, right there. And it's intimidating. But before you go, just two spots I want to ask you. It's the final two questions. And then
What's up?
Do you have any recommendations for books, articles, or other forms of media for the audience?
Yes. For books, I highly recommend The Lord of the Rings and Red Pottage by Mary Cholmondeley. I think that's the name of the author. Red Pottage, Mary. You'll find it. Those are my
Perfect.
two. Oh, also Neuromancer.
Neuromancer.
Yep.
I'll link those in the description for everyone too, so they can find those easier. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you was, do you have any closing statements for the audience?
Nothing other than thank you for listening in, and I hope that you found something useful in what we had to say today. And if not, thanks anyway, and hope it was amusing.
Man, that's one word for this show. Not just this episode, but this show has been an experience for me, especially. I like it, man. I enjoy doing the podcasting. But man, everyone's different. Everyone's very different. It's fun.
I really enjoyed it too, honestly. I ain't gonna lie.
Dude, I'm glad.
I didn't know what to make of it, to be honest.
I know it's a weird thing, especially when the dishwasher asks you if you do a podcast.
I don't fucking care, bro.
I'm used to being the random guy, the random stuff. So, well, and I appreciate that, Warner. I really do. It's been a pleasure, man. But hey, I'm gonna let you go. I know you got to get out the door, and
yeah, bro.
We'll stay in touch.
All right, dog. Good to hear from you, and it was a pleasure.
Hey, likewise, Warner. Thanks again, and thanks for being here on the World Networking Podcast today.
Peace out, world.
Thank you for being a part of our show today. We're really excited to bring more episodes for the holiday season. Tomorrow we're going to be recording the Intellectual Adventure Podcast episode for the Christmas spirit to be posted Wednesday, along with various projects in January coming up. We have a new member on the panel that we'll be introducing, and we will be working towards making some more art over the slower seasons between inviting guests and such. So there's good things to look forward to, and I'll keep putting out episodes on this show as interviews come up and as the schedule maintains balance with various guests. So I will keep in touch, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode on the World Networking Podcast. Thanks.